Thank you for joining us today, Tom. It's really great to have you with us.
Thank you, Amy. I'm honoured to be invited to take part in the podcast.
Well, I'm looking forward to you sharing your story and sharing your insights. So first of all, first question, can you tell us a little bit about the organisation that you lead, please?
Yes, of course. So I'm the CEO of Sea Capture. And Sea Capture is a startup company. It's a spin out from the University of Leeds. And on one level, it's a small organisation of scientists, engineers and support staff who are trying to develop a new technology for capturing carbon dioxide from industrial flue gas emissions to help decarbonise the UK and the world's industry. And on another level, we're the vanguard of Drax and BP's decarbonisation efforts, because these are our flagship investors, and we are adding the new investors to our cap table at the moment. So it's all about climate saving chemistry, working out how to break through the barriers that are currently preventing people adopting carbon capture and storage as a solution to climate change.
Fantastic. And I won't pretend that I understand the chemistry of it, but I have an absolute passion for your purpose. So I thank you for joining us and sharing your story and doing what you're doing. So can you tell us first of all then a bit about your journey into leadership then? How did it start? Was it always going to be the case that you were a CEO, or was that an organic journey?
I think everybody's a leader inside themselves somewhere. Everybody wants to achieve something in life. Everybody has to either first lead themselves and then do what it takes to make their dreams become a reality. So I'd encourage anybody who thinks that they might not be a leader to think otherwise. So I guess all the way through school, I was given opportunities to lead teams. So at school we had a cadet force. So I used to run the Navy section of the cadet force. It's loads of fun. We did loads of really on Thursday afternoons. We went off sailing, went off climbing, and just had a lot of fun. But I had a military itch that I needed to scratch as a young man. So I joined the army in my gap year. It's a bit like voluntary national service. It's a highly competitive process to get a slot on what's called the Short Service Limited Commission Scheme.
Okay.
When you join the army, you go to the Sandhurst Military Academy and taught the rudiments of leadership for about 6 weeks, and then you're let loose in a regiment. And I was very lucky to be posted to Hong Kong to join the Gurkhas. Wow. There's an engineering unit that supports the Gurkhas, and I was based in Southeast Asia as a junior member of their management team. So a very rude awakening, being an 18-year-old in a management team of people who knew what they were doing.
An incredible experience, though.
Oh, it was. No, absolutely, and I'd recommend it to anybody. So I kept doing that in my at university, and after graduating in the reserve forces with 131 Commando. And then took an opportunity when to volunteer with the Institution of Chemical Process Engineers, which is it's a professional body which trains people who come out of university and helps people on their professional journey, advises governments, but has the responsibility to infer chartership status on engineers that have been through their training, and then once they've been through their training and have been through their experiential journey up to being an associate member, a member, and then a fellow. So I volunteered as in that organisation when I didn't have those leadership opportunities in my professional life as a junior engineer. So I volunteered on the committees, and it's been a fairly constant thing. And then about 3 years ago, I was asked to volunteer onto the board of the Institution of Chemical Engineers, representing the 20,000 overseas members.
Wow.
It was a great honour, and I learned a huge amount. So in many ways, my leadership journey was outside of my work, and then work slowly caught up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were saying on the previous call, weren't we? We were saying the role that you're in at Sea Capture, because it's been 4 years in January, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost as you look at the progression through your career, it's almost as though that role was created for you. It was made for you.
Well, I do joke about it with the guys in the office and at home. So it was 20 years ago, I was working as a junior engineer in carbon capture and storage, then moved into business through the proposals function at work, got sent out to the Middle East as part of an acquisition, and then sort of grew that way. And then when the opportunity to come back to the UK, back to carbon capture and storage, and back to startup life, it's a Tom-shaped hole, which so I haven't looked back. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And so Sea Capture's 4 years in, or you're 4 years in at Sea Capture. Sorry, 2009 it started, wasn't it, as a spin-off?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
The organisation was led by Casper Skulderman and Doug Barnes, an exceptional chemist and engineer. As they were developing the technology, they realised that they needed a CEO. Looked at the job description and thought, this really isn't for me. So Casper is back in doing the things that he really enjoys and knows best in the engineering space. And I came in as CEO, and we're both, in our happy place. And it's a really tight team. We've got an amazing group of scientists, engineers, and business support staff here. You can really feel that sense of mission here in Sea Capture that I hadn't felt since I'd left the army.
Really? Well, and I suppose it's that purpose that we spoke about. I suppose everybody's, just stumble into that kind of role and not carbon capture. Be fine. If we capture it, we capture it. If we don't, we don't. It's not that kind of world, is it?
Well, no, that's people talk about purpose quite a lot, and companies should have a purpose. And if we're delivering pizza, then if our purpose is to deliver that 2 minutes quicker, that's not so inspirational for a broader group of people. Yeah. But we're very fortunate here at Sea Capture. Our purpose is very succinct. It's all about decarbonising industry and the world, in order to make the world a cleaner and better place. So people are really interested in what we're doing. In many ways, we're lucky that our purpose, it's on the doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of where you are as a leader in that organisation, then what kind of challenges are you up against currently?
I suppose there's all sorts of different buckets of challenge. First of all, there's the technical challenge. We've got to prove to the world that it works. Yeah. And what we've got is a brand new chemistry that's never been used in this field before. So first of all, you prove it that it works in the laboratory, and then you build a pilot plant. So it took us 18 months to build a pilot plant, and it's been operating now for almost a year. And that's going to give us the data that we need to build a 100 ton per day unit. And that will give us the data that's required to build a 10,000 ton per day unit, because that's the largest carbon capture plant that the world demands at the moment. So that's the technical proof that it works, and then scaling up that solution from 1 ton per day to 100 tons a day to 10,000 tons a day. But then, of course, as a startup company, we've got money challenges. So we're in what people call the valley of death, which sounds a bit dramatic. It's where we've come to the end of the road on research grant funding, and we've had a great run. The government's been extremely supportive, the various governments over the last 10 years. But now we're going into that commercial stage where we want to build something of a commercial size, which is beyond what government R&D grants can support us with, and really beyond what venture capitalists can support us with. So therefore, how do we then fund that first of a kind demonstration plant, which probably won't be economic because we haven't worked out how to build it really efficiently yet. But as time goes on, costs will come down and we'll break through those barriers for adoption. And then, of course, there's policy challenges. So right now, the government and the world is developing climate change policies, which right now aren't working. People aren't building carbon capture plants on a all the way around the world yet. There've been breakthroughs. In the UK, we've just heard some really great news about the adoption of CCS, and the United States is following along close behind with their Inflation Reduction Act. In the EU, again, is coming up with their own policies which suit them. So there's that heady mix of getting the technology right, getting the money right, get the policy right, and once all that comes together, and then it's all about growing the team. So, and we do have turnover challenges. People join the company, and it's hard work. It takes time. It's a lot of tenacity.
Yeah. It's all about balancing the tension, isn't it? Often, in terms of those buckets that you talked about, you've got to make sure that your eyes on every single challenge.
Well, exactly, and I'm extremely fortunate. I've got a really superb team. The technical team the chemistry team with Doug Barnes are really ticking off the challenges as they come up. Then the Casper's leading the R&D engineering and building and operating the pilot plant, generating those technical proof points. And then Tom Scroop, my CFO, is being really creative in terms of how to bring money into the business. And and people are interested in what we're doing. And we've recently welcomed a new investor to the board, a regional development fund, Northern Gridstone, which is all about helping intellectual property spin-outs from the universities of Manchester, Sheffield and Leeds get the funding they need, but also with a regional development agenda as well. So they're a really great fit.
Good, fantastic. And your leadership style then, Tom, in that situation, how do you lead? How do you lead a sort of technical team that's in the Valley of Death, but passionate about the purpose?
Well, I think most people would say that the foundation of the way that I lead, I think, is enthusiasm.
Okay.
So it's all about making sure that people feel good about what they're doing. They see hope with what they're about to achieve, and that will give people the desire to to really lean into and push the wheel. Because when the time gets tough, it can be pretty miserable. If the pump is broken again, and you've lost a week's worth of data, and you've got to go back and restart. This is grim. Times like that are grim. But when you get those breakthroughs, it's superb, and you get the right data. You're able to show your investors that you're making progress, and you need to celebrate those successes. But I think there's one of the things I learned quite early on is that it's all about choosing your leadership style for the situation. And the military is very good at this, because there's two very distinct headspaces that the military occupy. One is when you're training and getting ready, which is all about sort of slow, cautious, thoughtful preparation. And then another style of leadership is taught around action-centered leadership, making sure that people make decisions quickly in the absence of information and moving forwards, because to stand still is dead. So both of those things are true. So it's about adopting your leadership style for whatever situation you're in. In the business world, there's a bit of both, but it's difficult to tell which stage you're in sometimes. Are we having a quiet reflection about something that needs to be fixed, or are we just going, just get it done? And it's very difficult to choose the right. I think we all have to choose which leadership style we need for the right moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so have there been figures in your past that have influenced that leadership style?
Well, I think there's every organisation that I've worked in, I've always had a boss. I've always seen other people work there. Mm-hmm. So you watch and emulate how a particular leadership style works in the particular culture that you're in at that time. I think that's always a thing to keep an eye on. And then in sea capture, I guess people look at me and they say, well, Tom, how are you going to set the tone of the culture of the company? So we spent a lot of time actually over the last 9 months as a team. We started off doing a bit of post-it work in an offsite, people deciding who we thought we were, to decide what our leadership style, what our culture should be in the company. And there's 3 words that we've landed on: collaboration, tenacity, and expertise. And these themes kind of cross through everything that we do.
Mhm.
So those are the pillars that we're using to adopt inside sea capture around our leadership style, and we can hold each other to account. It's like, there was a bit of tongue-in-cheek moment in a meeting recently when one of my colleagues said, "Well, Tom, I think we need to be a bit more tenacious over here, don't you think?" And it was like, "Yeah, I think we probably do." So, and this is where sort of culture leadership kind of really intersects, and it defines who we are, and we need something to reach out and touch as a constant as things change. And then in terms of people, there are certain people that really stand out. In fact, there's a quote attributed to Her Majesty the Queen that I really like, which was, "I know of no single formula for success, but over the years observed that there are some attributes of leadership that are universal and often about finding ways of encouraging people to combine their efforts, talents, insights, enthusiasm, and inspiration to all work together." And that's quite tricky, but they all. So when you look at a situation, I always think, how are we going to try and get those five working together here?
Yeah.
And it's all about helping the team, or the individual, or the team, understand what drives them, what they've got, what ideas they've got, and how to put all that enthusiasm, inspiration into place. So that's a useful framework.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Her Majesty the Queen is right up there, and she had a long time to get it right. And that long-term experience then really helped other people achieve what they needed to achieve. And that's what leadership's about. A leader doesn't achieve anything. Their team achieves the objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to what you said about the people, in terms of them being able to sort of look at their talents and look at their skills and what they're enthusiastic about, I suppose it's your role to help them feel secure and safe enough to be able to do that.
Well, that's another area that's a lot of time is being spent on at the moment. People talk about the fearless organisation.
Mm-hmm.
And in a research organisation, that's really important.
Yeah.
It's really important for people to have the space to feel secure, to take an idea away to a quiet space, have a noodle on something, give it a go, fail, work out why it failed, have another go. And that's the scientific exploration method.
Yeah.
Which is that crucible of creativity that Casper and Doug created in the early days is something we're trying to keep hold of. It's very precious, but it's very difficult to maintain these kind of areas of creativity when you've got demands driven by money ticking away. So we've only got the amount of time as the money we've got in the bank as a startup, a pre-revenue company. So how do you create those areas of calm creativity while the clock is ticking on the outside? Look, that is tricky. That is tricky, because the reality is, if we don't get those technical proof points in before the money runs out, then we're all going home.
Yeah. So, sometimes it's about creating pockets, isn't it? Creating pockets of space so it still happens and it happens consistently, but the other stuff's got to happen in the background as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, because we're all human as well. We all need to feel the pressure, otherwise we wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, would we?
Yeah, true.
Different people feel different pressure differently. I mean, every time I look at the news, there's more climate disaster somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the pressure is relentless.
Yeah.
I'm not alone on that. But that's my purpose. That's the purpose of the company, to do what we can about climate change, because again, the clock is ticking.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't have much time to make the profound changes that in the way that humanity is operating at the moment, to stop doing the things which we need to stop doing, and then start things which we need to start doing on the inhuman scale that's required to turn things around.
But that's why I think this isn't intended as a political statement at all, but that's why it's frustrating to hear that you guys are where you are in terms of funding, surely we should be throwing everything we've got at these kind of challenges.
Look, I'd be churlish to say that people aren't helping. The opposite side, of that point of view is, well, we need to make sure that taxpayer money is being spent wisely. You can't just throw money at everything. We're looking in the news about people who, after the fact, see how their money was spent. For example, during COVID, that was huge. The global response to COVID is the same level of response that we need to have to climate change. So we know it's possible. What does drag us back is, after the fact, people saying, well, that contract didn't follow the processes. This person shouldn't have been using those money for those things. In the heat of the moment, it's difficult to ensure that you always follow processes and you always follow the right rules. So you've got to make sure that people's motives are correct. The trust breaks down when people don't believe each other's motives. So if there's any insinuation that somebody took money to, for their own personal gain, irrespective of whether an idea worked or not, then of course trust will break down. We've got to maintain that level of trust in between government, society, and individuals to make sure that we can respond at the scale that we need to with climate change. So we are getting support. We have had very great support, and people are moving at their own pace as well. So even if they feel very positively, they might be thinking they've got to, I'll do that in 2030. I don't have to be net zero till 2030. It's like, well, actually, we need to say yes to projects now so they operate by 2025. And to have any hope of being net zero by 2030. So really, we're in a massive hurry. It's a long time to build.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned Her Majesty the Queen as someone that's influenced you in the past, or quotes of hers that has influenced you in the past. But are there other leaders, past or present, famous or otherwise, that particularly stand out to you? And if so, what have you taken from them?
Well, I think there's another one. So T.E. Lawrence, he's got a fantastic, I love his Dreamers of the Day quote around how some people don't dream equally. And it's how dreamers of the day are dangerous because they may live out their dreams. And I always sort of use that as an example when I'm asked to speak to school kids or people in their early careers as scientists. And it's all about the ideas, the dreams, and making them a reality, and developing your own skills to make it happen. Leadership is all about making it happen. But no, every organisation I've had colleagues and bosses that I've looked up to, and they were the right people at the right time for those organisations. But I used the Queen and Lawrence of Arabia there as examples that I think most people have heard of. Yes.
And in terms of when I'm speaking to leaders as well, so the purpose of this podcast is to share insights, is to speak with individuals like yourself, to learn from them and obviously share your story and share your insights. So I'm always really interested in what you're reading or what you've consumed or documentaries that you've watched that have been particularly powerful for you in your leadership career. Is there anything that you would recommend?
Well, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is an old classic. And I found that really, really helpful in my early career. Dropped it a little bit, and I'm now picking it back up again. In fact, my son was doing a leadership course as part of his school curriculum, and the basis of that book is still being taught. It's about managing yourself and your time, and making sure that you keep front and center what your objective is and how you spend your time aligned to your objective, and that's a real classic. Actually, the book I'm reading right now is another book I picked up again called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There."
Yeah. That's a good one.
And it's another classic, and it's a real kind of reflection. We all know all these things intuitively. What's super about Martian's book is how it makes you sit down and think, rethink, reassess, and go, oh yeah, 20 years ago, I would have thought these things were a problem, and the things that I now need to sort of address and refix. And now where I am now, I'm wincing slightly when I'm seeing these leadership failings that people probably fall into, and thinking, oh, yeah, I did that recently. So it's a case of constantly reassessing the things that we need to sharpen up on.
Yeah,
and we change.
Yes, as we're meant to.
Yeah, it's true. So I recently did an exercise on personal values, and I thought I knew who I was. But I put my 25-year-old head on, and I answered lots of questions. And by the time I finished the exercise, the answers are very different now from my 25-year-old self. So I do think we change, and what we think is important changes over time. So picking up those old books and having a rethink, having a reassess, I find it very helpful. Very, very helpful.
Absolutely. I do the same thing with Stephen Covey's book. Pick up a shelf. I'm
also very lucky at home. My wife, Annabelle, she's an executive coach. So she does not coach me. She won't do that. She says that's impossible. But has encouraged me to take up an executive coach. And I do find it really, really helpful.
Yeah, good. Fantastic. And you almost segued into my next question. It's a question that I really enjoy asking, but people often don't enjoy answering. And it's about your blooper reel, Tom. So if you had a leadership blooper reel, are there sort of if I knew then what I know now moments that you're comfortable sharing with us?
Oh, countless. Because we all have high ideals of things we want to behave, and sometimes we stick them on our sleeve or we stick them on the wall and say this is what our values are. And sometimes we fall short of the bar we set for ourselves, and that's hard work. So, one of my failings is that I have a tendency to bite my tongue, and I will people to do what I think they should be doing, and I try not to tell them what to do. But if they don't do it in enough time, then I snap.
Right.
So there's that's certainly a blooper, which is it comes across not just my professional life. It's my children talk to me about this too. They say, if you told me you were on a 9, then I wouldn't have. Then I wouldn't have done that. Why didn't you tell me you were already on a 7? So we joke about it at home.
Yeah.
There's plenty. And other things, when you're in a hurry and you just want to get something done, sometimes one doesn't choose their words as carefully as you like. And you you're trying to encourage them. And I think that the key is to, when you do realize you've made a blooper, circle back and say, oops, sorry, that didn't go the way I wanted it to. What I intended was this. And sometimes the damage is done, but sometimes, and most people, if they think you're being genuine, will accept an apology like that and move.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, that's only 2. I could think of plenty more.
No, we'll leave it at 2 for now. And so final question then, can you tell us a little bit more about Sea Capture and what's going to be happening over the next 6, 9, 12 months that you're excited about that people should know?
Yeah, well, at Sea Capture, we're at this really, really exciting point where we are coming to the very end of our piloting program that will give us the technical proof points, which will show the world that what we've said in the lab can be scaled up to 100 tons a day using industrial techniques, and then the credibility switch will be flipped, and people will see, oh yes, it's no longer a science project. This is a technology that's ready for deployment. So that's really, really exciting.
Yeah.
We've got a few projects lined up to be our first commercial scale demonstration project. So we're waiting for a few things to fall into place before we can make an announcement on those. The world is really, really interested in what's to do with those industrial emissions, which have got nothing to do with energy. Mm-hmm. We're currently emitting 40 billion tons a year of CO2 into the atmosphere. If we waved a magic wand and removed all of the energy related emissions, we still have 9 billion tons a year of CO2 entering the atmosphere from cement, steel, glass, waste to energy, lime, industrial processes where CO2 is actually created in the process.
Okay.
That's where we're focused, and they come to terms that we can, with nuclear and renewables, and we can do the energy transition. We just need to get there. But carbon capture and storage is for what's still there. So there's a huge amount of interest. The president of COP28, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, actually came around to our stand at an energy show recently in Abu Dhabi, and shared his enthusiasm for what we're doing, which is so encouraging.
So
yes, we're on the cusp of something really, really quite profound, and it is really exciting.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the luck. It's important what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story and sharing your insights. It's been great speaking with you.
Likewise. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks for listening to the Human CEO podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, please help us share more leadership content by liking and subscribing. If today's episode got you thinking about unleashing the full potential of your organisation's culture, we've got a great next step for you. Take our free assessment at humanculture.scoreapp.com to see where your organisation stands and discover actionable insights to elevate your workplace culture.